I'm Lulu from Plants by Lulu and welcome on my channel. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and let's go! Today is another PLOOKS Plants and Books, and I just want to preface that the pairings I make do not reflect the rankings of the plant or the book. As you can see next to me, there is already a plant. It is a variegated cacti, Euphorbia ingens marmorata. This plant is longer, if I stretch my arm, it is not long enough to go to the top. So it is a long plant. I will show you somewhere along the way how long it is. For now, I'm going to introduce the book. It is a book from a French anthropologist, of which I will discuss the English translation of the book. However, I have the Dutch translation in my hands because I received this book as a present. So in Dutch, it's called Geloven in het wild, which literally means believing in the wild. But the English translation is In the Eye of the Wild. It is a book from Natasha Martin, which I already said is a French anthropologist. And I think for me, although it is not, it's not a book in my top 10, it is a very important book. I will first read you something about the book and then something about the author. After enduring a vicious bear attack in the Russian Far East Kamchatka Peninsula, a French anthropologist undergoes a physical and spiritual transformation that forces her to confront the tenuous distinction between animal and human. In the Eye of the Wild begins with an account of the French anthropologist Natasha Martin's near-fatal run-in with a Kamchatka bear in the mountains of Siberia. Martin's professional interest is animism. She addresses philosophical questions about the relation of humankind to nature, and in her work she seeks to partake as fully as she can in the lives of the indigenous peoples she studies. Her violent encounter with the bear, however, brings her face to face with something entirely beyond her ken. The untamed, the non-human, the animal, the wild. In the course of that encounter, something in the balance of her world shifts. A change takes place that she must somehow reckon with. Left severely mutilated, dazed with pain, Martin undergoes multiple operations in a provincial Russian hospital, while also being grilled by the secret police. Back in France, she finds herself back on the operating table, a source of new trauma. She realizes that the only thing for her to do is to return to Kamchatka. She must discover what is meant to have become, as the Even people call it, Metka, a person who is half human, half bear. In the Eyes of the Wild is a fascinating, mind-altering book about terror, pain, endurance, and self-transformation. Comparable in its intensity of perception and originality of style to J.A. Baker's classic The Peregrine. Here, Natasha Martin takes us to the farthest limits of human being. The reason why I chose this book is because I have studied anthropology, and during the master I did research. And one of the things that is kind of different than maybe doing research in more concrete fields like economics or, even psychology is a bit more concrete than anthropology. It's hard to find people that fully understand what you're going through while you're doing research. And of course, the thing with this is that every anthropologist that does research has a vastly different experience. But one thing that everybody has in common is that you're put in a setting that is very unpredictable. And I think even though this is a book with many faces, this is her way of processing the event, like writing this book. This is her story, like what factually happened. This is a telling about hospitals being political. But this is also a story about being an anthropologist that does research and what that entails. It can be very different than you first expect. And I think that's the beauty of anthropology and doing research. Anthropology in the past and sometimes even today is still not is still not something to write home about, if you can say it like that. The ethics in the past were really not great. However, because I am an anthropologist, I think this book, like the anthropological side of it, gives a good impression with what anthropologists can struggle with. One of the first things one of my professors said to my class in the first year was that you are going to be treated already differently in the field than your colleague. The first difference would be, are you a man, are you a woman, are you binary? The second difference will probably be, what is your ethnicity? The third difference will be like your age. So those are already three things that you probably wouldn't think of when you think of how you are going to be treated. But in the fields we are working in, that can be a very major factor in how you're being treated. And part of doing anthropological research is navigating that space. We have a lot of representation how it was in the past, and we also have nowadays a lot of like reflective representation in how we look at the past, but not much at how it is now. And I think this, besides that this book is a lot of different stories, which I mentioned earlier, it is also that for me. And so that's why I chose this book. Also because I got this book as a gift from one of my parents, and I don't want to get into it too much, but that holds meaning because that parent is more into doing research with solid numbers, and he's into the math, economics, and that area. That field versus the field of anthropology is vastly different. So this was kind of a message of I'm trying to understand, because that parent read this book first and then gave it to me as a present. So it was kind of a token of I am trying to learn about your field and I'm trying to understand. That's also a reason why I chose this book. But now, why did I choose this plant? Multiple reasons. One of the reasons is what I just told about one of my parents. It is kind of the more stereotypical thing when you think about a cactus, that, you know, the outside is prickly, the outside is maybe harsh, but the inside is soft. The inside is where the plant allows itself to grow upwards or sideward. The inside is the heart of the plant, even though as a protective mechanism, he is very prickly. And I think that is kind of, in the grander scheme of things, a bit of the relationship between that parent in regards to me and anthropology. However, it is also standing for what is described in this book. And that is because, well, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of the identity crisis you can have, or you probably will have, when part of your face is destroyed. Who am I outside of the body I have? Even though my face is not considered conventionally beautiful anymore, am I still beautiful? Am I still me? Like, who am I? What she also describes is that she was really trying to make sense of it all, why it happened, like why her, why that moment, why a bear, why, you know, why so severe, why did she survive? And I think one of the things that amazes me is that the cactus in the wild can grow under any circumstances. So it is very resilient, and so you can ask why? Why can it survive there? Well, other plants can't. Of course, evolution, but you know, it is a question maybe naturally can have while thinking or looking at a cactus. The other thing is, even though the cactus looks scary and is prickly and can be dangerous, it is beautiful in the inside. I don't know if you can see on the cactus, but this specific cactus has variegation. I think it is such a beautiful cactus. It is. However, the outside is maybe in the plant world not conventionally pretty or not conventionally beautiful. But I think it is showing who this cactus is through its curves, through the variegation pattern on the cactus itself. And that is why I paired this book with this plant. That was it for this episode. If you have any book recommendations or plant recommendations you want me to discuss, or a pairing you want me to discuss, leave that in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe and the like button, and I will see you in the next video. Doei!